My name is Eddie O'Brien with O'Brien Angus Farm. I'm a fifth generation farmer here. We're diversified ag. We run registered Angus cattle herd, and we also raise corn, soybeans, and alfalfa. Alfalfa that we raise, we either put up in 3x3s, 3x4s in round bales. What we don't use for our own production, we'll sell to dairies or to horses throughout the country. Probably the big thing today will be finishing up our first cutting of alfalfa here today before it gets too dry. So, most I enjoy is the being able to set my own hours and work when I want, and then working with cattle. I grew up working with cattle, and then over time you can see how you advanced your herd through genetics and just watching the performance and the improvement overall over time. It's something that don't happen just in a day. It takes years to build, and that's what I like to see, is to keep building for the future so the next generation will have something to go on and continue on, hopefully, the family tradition. So in the springtime, usually this later spring like this, is we're done with calving. So now we're looking at the process of preparing that cow for the breeding season that'll be coming up here in June and July. So your pre-breed vaccines that you want to give to your cattle and your calves, getting them ready to go to grass, and then mineral, a very important part, nutrition, because you're preparing that cow for the breeding season, and you want to keep that short window of time frame that they breed back about the same time every year. It's very important and very crucial this time of the year and later spring, of getting them prepped best that you can for the breeding season coming up. Yeah, we've got kind of a variety of cattle in this pen here. So this one was born about 3 days ago, so it's not very old. So we just came out of a spring here that was been a great spring for calving. I'll say that right now. It was for pastures probably not so much because it was extremely dry and cooler spring, but it was a very dry spring, which made it very nice for calving. That's another thing too. After calves are tagged and ready to go, we'll be working the calves again with different shots. And probably the best is when you're going into shots and vaccinating cattle is consulting your local veterinarian, and what they recommend for every operation is different. I know for vaccinating, I know some people use a modified live vaccine, and if you have all your cattle open at the time, is very, very good to use. But if you, like our operation, we do a spring, fall, and winter calving, which not all of our stock is open because we have 3 different calving seasons. So we use a different program that our vet sets up for us that works best for our operation. So probably when you're starting, like if you're looking for cattle, this year we had a guy looking for heifers. He's just starting out, and I said, well, you want to look for something I said, when we look for it, I said, well, these are the cows here that I know their performance. I said, their longevity. They have they're cows that breed back every year real well. They're cows that will come back every year, produce great calves for you, and cows that maintain themselves. And that's one thing you want to look at, is when you buy something, is just because it's cheap don't mean it's the best sometimes, but you can't spend a fortune either when you're getting started. You want to find something in the happy medium that works best for every operation. Every operation is different. Every operation has different goals, but when you're starting out for a beginning beef producer, and that's kind of what I did, was when we were buying registered stock, I tried to get stuff that I could afford or that I thought would work best in our operation. And it's kind of a lot of trial and error process when you're learning, and it's that they always nickname the school of hard knocks, which it is sometimes because it can be kind of expensive. But when you're selecting cattle like that, you want to find stuff that is going to have good mothering ability, growth, performance, and soundness is another thing you want to look at for soundness on cattle too for that. We're here at late summer here. This year's been an abnormally dry summer. So this year beef management's a little bit different. We're gonna drop some hay off to these cows here that we've been kind of supplementing along here for the last month here right now, just due to drier conditions.
Usually we'll have a 3x4 bale that will kind of roll off slabs. A little better quality hay, just kind of a little better protein. Kind of keep them going on the drier grass, what they have yet.
We stock pastures a little later than we usually do. Stock them lighter, so we do have more cattle on grass, which is a little more expensive for feeding wise, but we're supplementing pastures right now. So like right now will be the cattle we do not have that are on pasture yet. We are actually hauling hay up there and kind of rolling slabs of hay off to the cows to kind of supplement them along here. We will be weaning here shortly. Usually we're going to be weaning about 2 months earlier than we average do, just to bring them home to take a little pressure off the cows, so they can, with just the hay wise, they can maintain themselves until we get stocks opened up, and then we can start raising stocks, and hopefully we can kind of keep them in good shape to get into the late fall, early winter here. So usually when the grass gets a little bit drier, on an average year, we'll usually put protein tubs out. It's just kind of help the cattle's intake on feed, and with their protein for a little better digestibility of that dry grass, they can kind of maintain themselves better. But this year we've been supplementing hay just due to lack of forage overall on the pastures. So
kind of go around and we'll be walking through here, just kind of checking calves where we're going through here to see how they're doing. And this time of the year, kind of checking for pink eye to get them in, if we can, to get them in to treat them. Or we'll use a dart gun to try to vaccinate them on the run if we can't get them in the yard to treat them. Usually we treat them with Draxum or an antibiotic for the pink eye. The poron that we put on them is kind of running out. Due to the drought too, we have worse problems with flies, which also can cause more irritation and pink eye due to just the amount of flies out here. If the cattle are used to it, you can have them go under oilers, which kind of help with fly control. You can put fly control in the mineral, but this late in the game, you're probably better off with kind of an oiler for fly control. But a lot of times in the heat of the day, they'll stay on congregated together to kind of help swap flies instead of going out and grazing. So flies are a big issue with cattle.
late fall right now, so around Thanksgiving we always bring cows home from grass and then wean calves off of them. And we have them in a yard. We kind of, during the fall, we'll get them fed and then kind of leave them in the yards for processing. For the calves, we'll usually go through and get them poured, and then the calves that make the cut will go on to the bull yard, and the ones that won't be as quality calves that we keep back for bulls, they'll be banded and put into the feed yard. We usually give the calves their post-weaning shots, and then we usually pour them for the winter. Take care of the lice and external internal parasites with the porons that we give them. The cows, usually we leave them in the yards till we get a harvest done and stocks fenced off. When they're in the yard, we'll run them through the chute. When through the chute, you get them preg checked, and then have their pre-calving shots and poured also for lice in the winter. We'll be feeding cows in the yard today. We'll be mixing up a ration. We already have a corn stover. We'll be right at about 1,000 pounds of corn stover be in the ration, and then we'll put in about 500 pounds of distiller's grain to help increase the protein and digestibility of that corn stover. And then we'll put in some alfalfa and corn silage. The reason we put in the corn stover is kind of a cheaper roughage source. Then we can add a little less alfalfa and put a little more distillers in just to keep the protein levels where they need to be for the cows.
We already have the corn stover in and distillers, which we put in last evening. Distillers overnight kind of soaks into that, kind of helps sweeten it up and kind of soak it up a little bit.
Everything we get mixed up in the wagon there, and usually in the fall you can kind of get by with a little less protein in the ration, just more of a maintenance. when we go to spring, we'll bump up the alfalfa and the ration just to get a little higher protein for the cows when they start milking. In the past, haven't done a lot of corn stover, but the last few years since we got a newer mixing wagon, the nutritionist kind of suggested to be a little cheaper form of feeding cattle. So
here's one of our winter calves we're getting here. It's still decent enough yet that we can let them calve out in kind of a close-up yard, but just be one of our little heifers. You can tell he's really happy to be petted, but this afternoon I'll get him tagged and get his vaccines up to date so he's all ready to grow up in the herds. So
the big thing I like about fall is when you start weaning the calves. I said the proof is in the pudding, and which it is at this time of the year. You bring calves home from grass. New heifers that you brought in, how they're doing for performance wise. It's kind of exciting time because it is basically your harvest, because you are harvesting what you raised that year. The calves, you get to go through them and see how they actually performed. Usually the fall is kind of winding down for the year, bringing stuff in and kind of getting ready for the cold time. It's a good time to be kind of wrapping up for the year. So. We're in the winter season now, so we have just finished up all the processing, getting the cows preg checked, and then doing our final sort. Ones are open, we'll move on down and sell, and the bred ones we'll kind of sort out accordingly. The ones that'll be calving January, December will stay closer to home on stocks and in the yards. The ones will be calving mid-March and after, we run out further away from home, and they'll stay out on stocks until about the 1st of March when we bring them in. The winter calvers we'll keep around the place and kind of keep my eye on them. When they gets close to their due date, we'll put them in the shed and they'll calve in the under roof. We've just finished up fall breeding. We usually do in November, we'll run till mid-December. We'll do the AI and then we'll turn bulls in to kind of clean up what we don't get covered. But usually the cows stay on stocks, usually take care of themselves unless we have any big snowstorms that come through. This time of the year, we'll start evaluating like the calves we have coming in and the bulls we have, and then we'll kind of look through and see what qualities they have, what they don't have, and then where areas that we need to improve on for our fat cattle that we finish out, get kill sheets back on them for how they perform, and then we'll kind of evaluate that, do the carcasses that they have, which kind of give you an idea what you need to improve on or areas that you're adequate on. This last group of steers that we got back, for grading wise, ribeye area was more than adequate. Marbling was a little on the low side, so the next bulls we'll kind of look at. And not only that, people start sending out catalogs for production sales. And so when they have the new catalogs for production sales, we kind of look through them and to see what the calves look like out of the bulls that they're using. And then we'll kind of go through and kind of evaluate their performance, evaluate their soundness, their docility, and kind of go through areas that we need to improve on in our own herd. And then we'll kind of go through the book and see what bulls match best to increase them areas, improve them areas that we need to improve on. Another thing is this time of year, you have a lot of embryos will also be put on auction. And then we'll start watching auctions for embryos. And then we'll go through, and the same way we evaluate our bulls that we use for AI, and we'll evaluate the cow and the bull for the embryos we'll be buying. And then we kind of a game then to see if you can get them bought for the money you want to get them bought for, and we'll kind of start evaluating our new breeding stock for the year we're going to be bringing in, which typically we start for winter calving be March, late March to early April. We'll start AIing for that. So probably the big challenge for calving in the winter if they come in earlier than their due date than expected. If weather's nasty, we have had some that you go out there and that wasn't supposed to be there, and if you're not there within the time frame on extreme cold, you will lose the cows just due to just the cold. Most rewarding part of winter, I guess that summer will be coming, I guess. I always enjoy the calving part, seeing new little ones hit the ground and see how they perform. So